All right, everybody, welcome to On Deck here on Coast to Coast Network, Entertainment Network, I should say, on this September 23rd. So if you looked at your calendar, it's 9/23/23. Welcome to On Deck, as I mentioned, here with my folks here. Crispy Bacon, how are you today?
Doing doing
And then,
good. Yeah, uh,
go ahead, Chris, go ahead.
I was gonna say doing good. The baseball season's wrapping up and things are heating up.
Things are clearing up, that's for sure. And then down below me here, we have Greg, Big Dog Greg. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you today?
I'm good. This is my first show with you, and I was always interested in getting the show in. I always watched the show, and I thought, man, I got to step in sometime and do a show with you. So this is really good here on Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. Make sure you tune into all the programming. I know Chris always mentions that every end of the show, but yeah, this programming all during the week here on Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. So check all that out for sure. All right, let's get into it. So the MLB season is wrapping up here. A lot of things are clearing up. As I mentioned, divisional chases are kind of ending here in September. Crispy Bacon, we'll go first with you about our team reports. Now, I go with you because the Texas Rangers just got first place last night. It keeps going back and forth, I see, in the AL West. And I just want a pulse of how that fan base is, because I see that they're half game ahead of Houston, one game ahead of Seattle. And there's a lot of games in between the division here where they play each other. So what's your team report on the Texas Rangers?
I think stressful. We are in sole possession of first. Hopefully that continues tonight. Seattle is a tough team. We had a lead last night at the beginning. It was like 8-0, and then towards the end of the game, Seattle got like 5 runs, and then at the last out, or setting up the last out, everybody was on base for Seattle. They could have won the game in the last out, but luckily our team, got them out and ended the game 8-5. Close call. Hopefully we don't have that happen tonight, but it's gonna be an interesting last week of the season. So
Yeah, definitely will be. It'll be amazing. And then I don't know, Chris. I forget to ask you, but the expectations this year with the Rangers, were they supposed to be competing for a playoff spot, or were they supposed to be like this, where they were expected to be coming in to 2023? Were they expected to be a playoff team, or just competing for one?
I think last year they were just competing for one, but with the signings you had last year and this year, I think the expectations was at least to make the playoffs, make it as far as possible. But I feel like the ultimate goal is more likely the World Series. But if you make it to the championship game before the World Series, I think they would be okay with that. But I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, they spent all that money, and I'm thinking to myself, I know they'll be better than my Angels. I know that for sure, and that has happened. But I didn't think they'd be this good. But they made all the moves, and even getting Scherzer, but that's blown up in their face. But they also made some other good moves, so that was good. Greg, I believe you're a Cardinals fan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have a team report on them? I know they were playing the Padres here in San Diego. I think the Padres held on 4-2 last night, I want to say. How's things going with the Redbirds?
It's been a long season. It's been a very underperforming, underachieving season. I know the loss of Molina, a new manager, definitely takes its effect. We ended up dealing a couple really good pitchers at the deadline. We pretty much gave Jordan Montgomery to Crispy Bacon's Rangers. That was a good deal for them. And actually, we got a couple decent trade pieces, but we pretty much gutted our pitching towards the end of at the trade deadline because the team wasn't going anywhere. We had to try to pick up a few more pieces and look forward to next year. So right now, I think the climate there is, within the organization is they're just trying to get a little bit more decent, take a few looks at some other guys, maybe get a few more at bats for some prospects or something this last week, see what they have, and then reassess their talent. And I think they're going to go into the winter meetings, very aggressively, try to make some moves, try to make something happen because they need a shakeup.
Yeah, I noticed some things this season with the Cardinals where they got off to the worst start in 50 years, literally in 1973. They were swept by the Angels somehow in May, and I'm thinking, that's not the real Cardinals. There's no way. They usually, kick our butts. And then I think I read something last year. This has been the worst record since 1995. Ozzie Smith's last year with the Redbirds. And it's just amazing, to see this team 20 games under, in last place. You just don't see this. But to me, I feel like it's more like, okay, you mentioned changes a little shakeup that will be needed. Do you have to get rid of your GM? I know the manager. You probably have to, Oli Marmol. Do you have to get rid of him? Is the Cardinal way lost right now? And do you think, is there a way to get that back somehow with like Yadi Molina being manager or somehow more into the organization? Like Benji Molina, I know, is over there. But how do you think everything will shake up in the offseason? Like, will Oli Marmol be gone? Will the GM be gone? Will there be a new sense of direction? The Cardinal way coming back? How do you think it all shake up in the offseason?
I really don't know about a managerial change because this is Oli Marmol's first season. He took over for Shildt, who wasn't doing a terrible job. I know he didn't go as deep into the playoffs as maybe they were expecting or hoping for, but Shildt really wasn't doing that bad of a job. And then they pulled the rug under him and decided to go a little younger route, and try to inject a little bit more life, and it didn't pan out this year. And of course, losing Molina after almost 20 years, he was pretty much a player coach out there. He is more than just a catcher. He is more than just a future Hall of Fame player. He was a team leader. He had great presence in the dugout. He was a good leader, and I think that they were missing a little bit of that leadership. And I think that having the Cardinals wanted to stay loyal to Wainwright and keep him around and stuff, and aging pitcher, keep him in the same organization. That didn't really pan out that well. I commend them on trying to stay loyal to him and him trying to see if he can do it for one more season before he retires. But I think that we just lost a lot of chemistry. I think that our general manager isn't too bad. I don't know if we really need to do a whole shakeup with management. I think that he's made some good moves, being able to get Arenado and have the Rockies pay for part of the contract, able to pick up Goldschmidt. We've had a pretty decent farm club over the past several seasons. I think that we probably just need to really get a little bit different personnel. We lost a couple decent arms with Flaherty going to the Orioles. We pretty much made the Orioles and the Rangers better teams by giving away our best pitching. Basically they're going to make a pretty good playoff pitch off of our arms. But we need a little bit more pop in the lineup. I don't think they necessarily need to change the manager or the general manager. I think that they just need to get like another bat and be aggressive, getting some arms, and pitching is key to success. So I think that they just need to kind of regroup. I know that this year, I think they made a mistake. I think that Contreras is a decent player, but he just doesn't bring the leadership, and he doesn't call the balls and strikes, the pitches, to the pitchers, quite like Molina did. Molina was fantastic game caller. Contreras doesn't have that ability. He's a hitting catcher, and I just don't think that he brings the same as what Molina does. And I think that that's just kind of been the thing, is they've just been kind of out of sync with each other this season. So hopefully they can regroup and get it together.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was going to mention to close out the Cardinals segment here was it's so weird seeing Contreras in a Cardinal uniform after all those years with the Cubs. It kind of reminded me of Jason Hayward in a way. But, yeah, it was a weird time, and it's a weird time with the Redbirds. But, yeah, hopefully they can get that back. You know, the corners for the Cardinals, the infield, they're fine. Going forward, you have those two guys, you can win. But everything else, you just have to shape up, I guess. For my team, the Angels, yikes! They lost 2 out of 3 in Tampa Bay or in St. Petersburg against the Rays. They lost last night 8-6 in a kind of a thrilling game in Minnesota. Minnesota did go on and celebrate on the field, winning the AL Central. Of course, the Angels had to watch that. Today they take on the Twins again for the next couple of days. They face Chris's Rangers. Okay, I guess I'm back. Yeah, my internet's doing weird things. All right, so anyway, just like the Angels this year, they just keep malfunctioning. The kids are playing. Nolan Schanuel, the first pick they got this year, first round pick, is leading off for him. That's how bad things are. A lot of the veteran players are getting injured or waived. It's just a really, really bad time here with the Angels. They're in 4th place right now, 69 and 90 or 85. Just eliminated. It felt like they were eliminated a couple months ago. Yeah, it's just a real bad time with the Angels. A lot of questions in the offseason. Just a lot of issues going on. Trying to find my thing, but you can check me out at Halos in the Infield. I do YouTube, the pregame shows there, and podcast for more Angels information on there. All right, so let's get to the standings. Now, I'll read them off. Of course, we mentioned the AL West with Texas, half game ahead of Houston, 1 game ahead of Seattle, and everybody else, of course, me and Isaiah's team eliminated there. The Baltimore Orioles lead the AL East by 1.5 games over Tampa Bay, and we'll get into Tampa Bay later in that race. Toronto's 9 back, but they're eliminated from that. Minnesota, like I mentioned yesterday, won the division over Cleveland and Detroit. And then National League, the Braves won their division over the Phillies. I believe that was the first clincher there. The Brewers will win the Central tonight. Huh, Chris?
But they clinch too?
A playoff spot. Not officially the
well, I mean, they're in the playoff.
Lead the division yet. The Cubs are 8 back, so the magic number for the Brewers is 1. And it's amazing to think I had St. Louis winning the division, and I don't know anything, I guess. The Dodgers won their division, I believe it was last week. Yeah, last week. Arizona, San Francisco, San Diego, they're all going for wild card spots. So let's go in the wild card race in the AL American League. Tampa Bay has the first spot by 8.5. They'll easily have that. But this is where it gets interesting. So Toronto, who I think a week ago was on outside looking in, they're now in the 2nd spot for the wild card spot, 1 game ahead of Houston. That's in the 3rd spot. And then Seattle's a half game back of that. So it's amazing what's going on in the American League. For the wild card in the NL, Philly has the first wild card spot by 5 games. Arizona has the second spot, one game ahead of Chicago, who's in the third spot. Miami's a one game back of that wild card spot. Cincinnati's a 1.5 back. San Francisco 3 games back, and then San Diego 4 games back with still a shot, but they're running out of time or games. Their magic or their misery number is 5, I guess you could say. So I know Greg wasn't here last week, but how do you see both wild cards ending up, Greg, in the American League? Which 3 teams do you see taking that spot? And then also in the National League, how do you see those wild card spots? Who are taking those?
Well, in the American League, of course, the Rays have it locked up. So it's mainly a matter of, who's going to win the West Division, because you've got the Astros and the Rangers right there, and then the Mariners aren't too far behind as well to be the straight up winner of that division, right? So you're going to have a 3-way race pretty much for the final 2 spots. I predict that Houston may figure out a way to take the division. I think that they have the experience, being the past champions, World Series champions, to get a few key wins, down this final stretch. So that would leave the Rangers and the Mariners. I think that, the Mariners were playing red hot baseball, not too long ago. But I think that if the Rangers can just keep putting the ball in play, get them on, steal some bases, keep hitting like they were. Their pitching's not bad. I know that losing Scherzer was a big blow, but I think that it's going to be the Rangers and the Rays and let's see, the Rangers, the Rays, and the Astros will win the division. And who's left?
The Blue Jays would be the one, and then Seattle.
Yeah, so I think the Blue Jays are going to hang on because they're hitting the ball pretty well too, and they're pitching with Bassett and Ryu. I think they're pretty solid. So I think that the Mariners might be the odd man out. They were playing their best baseball a month ago. They're starting to fizzle again. They've been up and down kind of all year. So right now I'm going to put the Mariners kind of on the outside looking in.
I guess we'll talk about the AL West on this topic here. So, Chris, how do you see the AL West shaping out? And then how do you see the wild cards shaping out?
Maybe how it is right now, I think, for each league will probably be how it ends up. I don't really see any change, possibly.
Now, it's so much different in the National League, guys, where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams vying for the 2 remaining spots. We know Philly has it. But, Greg, how do you see that National League wild card going? Who gets to the last 2 spots in that wild card?
I wasn't expecting the D-backs to be in this position, honestly. I know that early on they were looking good, and then they started to fizzle a little bit, kind of like how the Pirates started out hot, and then they really started to fizzle. So the D-backs have really shown a lot of strength and mental fortitude, to keep playing hard and get these big wins. They've been getting some decent, really good pitching out of Gallen. They're not a team that makes a lot of hard contact, but they're a team that doesn't strike out a lot. So I don't think the Giants are really going to make a push. I think that they have a little bit too much to overcome. I'd love to say that the Reds might sneak in for that final spot, but I think that their pitching staff is gassed. So I think that how it sits right now is probably going to how it's going to be. I think the Cubbies are going to get in there. The Phillies are definitely going to be in there, and then I think the D-backs. The D-backs are are a young team. They're a driven team. I think that it's going to be a very young postseason this year.
All right, so let's get to the weekend series that are going on. The notable ones, of course, Chris, with your Rangers, the Mariners facing off there. Of course, the Cubs are having the Rockies, and that's unfortunate for everybody else trying to chase the Cubs. The Mets and Phillies, I believe, will have a doubleheader today. The Brewers and Marlins, that will decide the Central there, and then see if the Marlins can get one of those wildcard spots. The Blue Jays and Rays, that's a really important series for both. The Jays are trying to stay in the wild card. The Rays are trying to chase the Orioles. The Orioles are facing the Guardians in Cleveland. The Reds are hosting the Pirates. Of course, I mentioned the Mariners and Rangers. That should be fun as well. The Astros hosting the Royals. The Padres hosting the Cardinals. And the Giants and the Dodgers later on. Already a couple of games postponed, the Braves and the Nationals, but the Braves have that division locked up. But the Diamondbacks will have to play probably doubleheader tomorrow in the Bronx, and that'll be big because the Diamondbacks have to make those games up, have to play those games, and they can either take advantage of that or they could have a really bad day tomorrow. So it just depends on what happens. Chris, I'll go to you first. What's one series stands out the most this weekend?
I would say kind of staying in the AL West is the Houston series. I mean, I could say the Rangers series, but the Houston one kind of relates to Texas too, in that you don't want Houston to win any of their next games, and you want to keep that sole possession of first place. I'm a little greedy, but
no, that's good. It's good, especially when you spend all that money. You got to be greedy. Greg, what series stands out to you? What's one series this weekend?
The series that stands out to me is the one with the most implications. When you're talking about the Rangers versus the Mariners, they're both going for the division. They're both going for at least a playoff spot. So definitely when you have potential elimination games, every game counts. When you're playing against a team that both teams are might be going after the very final spot, in the playoffs, I think that you're going to have a very hard fought contest. It's one that's going to go one way or the other. It's going to be very low scoring competitive, or it's going to be fireworks. I don't see a really 6-7 runs scored. I think you're going to have these 7-5, 8-6, or like 3-2 ball games in this kind of series. I think that you're going to see a lot of maybe bullpen usage, or a lot of pinch hitters, a lot of pinch runners, whatever you can do, to kind of scratch and claw your way into the playoffs. Another one that I'm looking at just for entertainment value, because you're talking about two teams that were expected to do really well. And the Phillies are still playing good ball, but the Mets have just completely fell off the grid this season with all the money that they spent, basically hiring Verlander like a soccer player, rent it and then basically have him for a few months, then give him back to the Astros, and then go get Scherzer. And then you got Zach Wheeler, who used to pitch for the Mets, who was like the one guy that the Mets probably should have held on to because he has fantastic stuff, So if they ever needed pitching, I don't know why they dealt someone like Wheeler to the Phillies. But I think that when you're looking at, all the stars out there, even though the Mets don't have a great record, Lindor, Alonso, Harper, Real Muto, Trey Turner, I think you're going to see a lot of runs this weekend. So I think that for entertainment value, I don't think the Phillies have too much necessarily to play for. They've got that first spot locked up for the wild card, but they're definitely a team that can put up runs, and the Mets are a team that can also put up some good runs at the top of their lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. I guess for me, definitely that Rangers Mariners series, not my Angels and Twins series, of course. But I guess one series I'll look at is Blue Jays and Rays. I just think, but yeah, both teams are going for something. And whenever I should say those three play each other, the Orioles, the Rays, the Blue Jays, now there's something at stake. And it's kind of fun without Boston and New York now. It's kind of fun. It's kind of good to see that for once. I don't know, but I really enjoy that. Speaking of the playoffs, the Twins and Brewers both clinched spots last night. The Twins clinched the AL Central against my Angels, of course, and the Brewers clinched a playoff spot yesterday. It had a funny moment with Rowdy Tellez pitching the ninth inning, a scoreless ninth inning, as the game was 16-1. So they put a first baseman out there to close out the ninth. And it's that time of year, Greg, you mentioned with the pitchers and the bullpen and how that's situated. I remember, I think last week, Marcus Stroman went out there, I think in an extra innings scenario, and the ninth inning, he went out there. Oh no, it was the extra inning game. So I remember he went out to pitch, and this is the time now where you have some of your starters relieving and trying to get important outs. Something you see in the postseason, you start seeing right now as teams try to get in. But talking about the Twins and Brewers, I wondered and this is a question for both of you. I'll start with you, Chris, here. Was it a surprise that the Twins and Brewers will both clinch their division? Did you have someone else in the Centrals winning their division this year? Are you shocked that both won their division or are going to win their division this season?
I think Milwaukee I am. Minnesota, I think I put them, I can't remember if it was a division win or something like that, but I know I put Minnesota in the playoffs. I might have to look back on that, but I think I put Minnesota in. Milwaukee, I'm not quite sure if I put them in the playoffs, so maybe they're a little bit of a surprise, but it's going to be interesting to see how they do.
And same question for you, Greg, about the Twins and the Brewers both on their way, or one's on their way to claim their division. The Twins already did last night. Are you shocked that both won their division? And then did you have someone else winning their divisions this year?
Well, in the AL Central, I pretty much had that from the top down predicted. I had the Twins winning that division. It's not much of a division to win, in my opinion. I don't think you have to do a whole lot. They'll be one of the worst record teams, in the playoffs. There's going to be a couple wild card teams that'll have better records than the Twins, but the Twins won their division. But as far as the NL Central, I had my Cardinals winning this division, and I had the Brewers kind of looking for like a second or third wild card spot.
Same.
So when the season first started, I thought, oh man, we got Flaherty healthy. We got Jordan Montgomery for a full season. We got Arenado. We got Goldie. Walker, this is going to be his big year to show what he can do. And then we just kind of fell apart at the seams. We picked up Contreras. I thought, man, this lineup's looking awesome, and it just wasn't.
Yeah, and for my opinion here with the Twins, it was funny how Carlos Correa tried so desperately to leave the Twins in the offseason, but nobody wanted him. Injury-wise. And then he settled with going back with the Twins, kind of, what's that expression about the dog putting his tail between his legs, going back to a place? That's what happened with Carlos Correa in Minnesota. But he hasn't had any of those Astro type of years in production offensively, but he's a good leader. We know that with the Astros. So I guess that was good. They also have a lot of young talent with the Twins. I think the announcer yesterday after they clinched was saying, "Look at all the young guys they brought up. Look at all the trade pieces they brought back. They brought Pablo Lopez getting traded over from Miami for Luis Ariz, and you see what Ariz is doing with Miami."
Yeah, that was a fair trade, really, though, because Lopez is an awesome strikeout.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. It's one of those rare occasions that both teams benefited from the trade. And I love when that happens because it will give a GM confidence to go out there and say, we traded once with you. Let's try this again. So it really worked out for both teams. So I'm really happy about that. I had Cleveland, but they had a lot of young injuries and then just off days. They did have one punch this year that I really liked, though. With Jose Ramirez punching Anderson. So maybe that was the highlight of the season for Cleveland. But I had them. Then I had the Cardinals winning the Central, and then just like you, I had Milwaukee somehow getting in the wild card spot. But I didn't know how their offense would be. But they hit enough this year. The rotation's really good with the three heads that they have there. So, congrats to those interleague rivals somehow with Minnesota and Milwaukee. Let's move on to an interesting story where I am, at least, with the San Diego Padres. They won their 8th straight game last night over the Cardinals 4-2. They're, like I said, 4 games out of the wild card. They need a lot to go right for them to win, to get in. They need the teams in front of them to lose, which is a lot, a laundry list of teams. The question is, can they take the last wild card spot? Chris, I'll go to you first. Do you think they can do it, or is there too many teams in front of them? Their tragic number's 5. How do you think it all shape up for the Padres?
I got faith in the Padres. I think they can do it. It sounds like a tall task because there's so many teams looking, to either spoil the party or just trying to eliminate them. But I think the Padres can do it.
And it's amazing to think with the Padres. Their run differential is plus 84. They have one of the lowest ERAs in the MLB. But they can never hit with runners in scoring position. That's what's hurt them all year long. Just a lot of solo shots. So, Greg, do you think the Padres still have a shot? I mean, 4 games out. The tragic number is 5. Do you think somehow they get the last wildcard spot? Or do you think it's already too late? There's too many teams in front of them.
I think it's a little bit too late. I think that, basically if they win, everybody else has to lose to make up ground, and so if they win and another team wins, that's a push. So I think that mathematically it's not looking good for them to make a run. They'd pretty much have to go about 7-2, 8-1, over this stretch to give themselves a shot, and then the other teams would have to go about 500 or a little bit worse, to have a puncher's chance at. So I think that it's a little bit too far gone. They're an exciting team to watch, but they're a team that they've had their chances all season long. Their weak spots is that the bottom of the lineup doesn't hit. Grisham doesn't hit, period. And with runners in scoring position, it's even worse. Once you get past the first 5 guys, they have a hard time hitting. And then there's been so many games this year that they've had like a 1 or 2 run lead going into the 6th or 7th inning, and they've blown it. A lot of saves, a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of games that went into extras that should have never been there in the first place. And I think that's been their Achilles heel all season long, is not finishing games with their relief staff and not hitting with runners in scoring position. That's
a perfect point about the bullpen, just like last night. And I was worried about that. I said, okay, they have an abundance of talent in the lineup, in the rotation, maybe not in the back of the rotation, but Seth Lugo has been a real surprise for them, among others. They have a guy yesterday who threw a knuckleball, Waldron, who throws a knuckleball. But yeah, I just felt like the bullpen would be the issue, not Hader. You got to get to Hader somehow. But to get to him is a chore, and it just seemed like that all the time this year. So
it's when he wasn't available or he was dealing with a minor injury. They lost a lot of those games, or their bullpen gave up a lot of runs, late in the game because they didn't have him in there, and it showed.
Yeah, that was certainly true there. For me, I think it's too late. It's fun that they're doing this. There's belief here, but it feels like it's kind of too late. And even if they did make the playoffs, they're limping in literally. Manny Machado will have to have elbow surgery. He is a DH right now. Jake Cronenworth has a thumb injury or a wrist injury, I want to say. He's out. Just a lot of things going wrong, even if they get in. So we'll see what happens. But at least they're in it. At least they're making a push.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to, speaking of injuries, the Tampa Bay Rays last night, they lost to the Blue Jays, I believe 8-4, but that wasn't the only thing they lost. The injuries piled up last night. Brandon Lowe, one of their outfielders, is out for the season. Jason Adam had to be removed from the game late. I was watching that game. I forgot what inning. I think it was in the 8th inning. But he's one of their best relievers. He had to exit. And then Randy Arozarena had to leave the game in the 5th inning with an oblique injury, I believe. So they all exited from last night's loss against Toronto. And it was really unfortunate to see because they really need those 3 guys with all the other losses they've had this year on and off the field. My question to you, Chris, with all these losses that the Rays have with players and the injuries, does this guarantee the Orioles winning the AL East?
Do I think Tampa's going to win the AL East?
Yeah. Do you think with the Rays having this many injuries, do you think eventually they'll just, they'll be content with the wild card, and will the Orioles just run away with their division with a week to go?
I think Tampa wants a division, but I feel like Baltimore could take it. It's hard to believe that Tampa Bay started out so strong.
Mm-hmm.
They had 13 wins in a row this season to start out. I just think that they won the division. They feel like they should get the division with all the hard work they did in the beginning. So I think it's division or bust. That's
true. Okay, same question to you, Greg, with the Rays injuries all year long and now just last night. Do you think this guarantees the Orioles winning their division?
I don't think you can count on necessarily injuries to get you anything. I think that the way that the Orioles have just been playing baseball all season long, I predicted a couple months ago on the show that the Orioles were going to overtake the division, and that was when the Rays were up about 4 or 5 games. Especially they picked up Jack Flaherty and everything. They're just a team that they put the ball in play. They don't strike out a lot. They have some young guys that can steal bases. The Orioles have been playing really solid baseball. They're a team that can put up good numbers. Their pitching is adequate. It's not outstanding. I think the Rays do have, really good pitching. But to lose this many guys, I think that the Rays have been losing their grip on this division for quite some time. And I think that, this pretty much, I think, seals the deal with all their injuries. I think there's going to be too much to overcome for them to win the division. They'll still be, a wild card team, and I think they'll do okay from a pitching standpoint. I don't know what they'll have to work with from a from a hitting standpoint, generating runs. But yeah, I think that the Orioles are gonna lock this down here in the next few days.
That's my feeling on that too. Just man, when you lose 3 key players on one night, and then you already lost 3 starters during the season already, it's a lot to overcome. At least for the division, you get in, but you limp in, literally. And I guess we'll end the show on a final topic on a odd note. Not really funny, but maybe funny. So, I believe it was on Thursday. Miguel Cabrera was gifted an $84 bottle of wine from the Oakland Athletics as a farewell tour gift. He's been getting, surfboards, rocking chairs, plaques. I think Fenway gave him a number from the Monster, I should say. There's been an abundance of gifts for Miguel Cabrera as he goes out from the MLB. But the A's, with all the things going on, as cheap as they seem, they really showed it here with this bottle of wine from 2021. You would have thought it would give them like an aged bottle of wine, from, the 90s at least, or the 2000s at least, Sonora's right there. Napa's right there. But
no,
this is what they give. Chris, do you find it funny or do you find it kind of sad, this story about the A's gifting Cabrera this bottle of wine?
I guess a little bit of both, because you look at the situation, you're like, okay, this player helped you out in so many ways. He's going to retire. This is how you end his career. It just doesn't look good. And then that it's $84 or whatever, and it's like you could have got me something better.
That's what it felt like. I mean, I would go out there and I bet Cabrera was going out there like, oh, this might be a precious bottle of wine. But I think someone can go out there and do the research and just say, well, that's really it. Like, I'm kind of surprised they didn't go to Bevmo or whatever other wine store there is and would have got something from there. Anyway, Greg, what do you think about this topic? Is it sad? Is it funny that the A's gifted Cabrera a cheap gift like that?
It's kind of humorous. I mean, okay, the A's have no interest in investing in their team, so it doesn't surprise me that they wouldn't, put a little money towards a player that didn't play for them, as a parting gift or whatever. Because they've been cheap all season long, getting rid of everybody, not making moves to do anything, just being content to be in last, all season long. I do think that they should have at least spent $150 so that it would match Cabrera's batting average this season. I think that the A's, I like the A's. I grew up kind of like in the A's with Canseco, McGuire, the Bash brothers, Dave Stewart, those guys. So it's really disappointing to see, with all these other gifts that other teams have been doing, and then here comes the A's with an 84 bottle of wine. I think that even the A's could do better than just sending an intern across the street to Trader Joe's to pick up wine.
Yeah.
And to mention, the A's are 60 games under at 47 and 107. They had a little streak going, a little winning streak going, and then they've lost 8 straight. And or they did win last night, but they did lose 8 straight before that. It seems like they're just trying to get to 50 wins, but we'll see what happens. They'll get to 50 wins, I guess. But I had them at 61 wins, and I guess that was overreaching.
I guess they're in talks to make another movie about the A's called Lack of Moneyball.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, I mean, if you see the plot of kind of a major league, that's what seems to be happening in Oakland, and they're just trying to eventually leave for Vegas, but I don't think Vegas is ready for them. We'll see what happens.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, and that will be a topic in the off season we'll have,
yeah.
and it'll just fester throughout the off season, and the lease with with the A's having to play one more year there, but the A's may block that depending on what happens, so they have to find a place to go. San Francisco doesn't want them. It's going to be a mess. We'll get to our final thoughts here, Chris. What's your final thoughts?
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching, tuning in. Should be a fun last week or two, or at least lead up to the playoffs and even the playoffs. Morning tailgates tomorrow, week 3. Hard to believe week 3 is already here, but it is. Cover that and just stay with Coast to Coast with all of our shows.
Yeah, time is flying by. Talking about football like that. Baseball just seems like it's a marathon of a season. You at least have a time a break even in the All-Star break to have, but in football it's just one week after another. Greg, what's your final thoughts on the show today?
Well, my final thoughts is that we're in for a treat for these last nine games or so of the season. We're off to a photo finish. It's going to be a tight race for the final wild card spots, and it's going to be a very tight race for that final spot. For the AL West. You got a big time thing brewing there. So not only is one team going to be probably out of the wild card, but you got a pretty tight race going on. Only about a half a game separates first from second in that division. I know a lot of people are kind of getting on the Braves bandwagon, and rightfully so to an extent, because they've been playing lights out baseball. That right now, record wise and everything, they're the best team. They put up a lot of runs. Their pitching staff is pretty solid. But I wouldn't, this postseason, I wouldn't count anybody out. The Brewers have excellent pitching. The Phillies are inconsistent, but they're a team that can put up a lot of runs. I think that you're going to see a lot of good performances from some potential dark horses, kind of like how the Phillies snuck in last year. It wouldn't surprise me if we have a few surprises this offseason. This postseason. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and I'm looking forward to the push for the World Series.
Yeah, both of you hit the head on that. I don't have much to say on the final thoughts other from me as an Angel fan. I just want the season to get over with. I have to go to, I think, one game on the 30th against the A's. Yay me. That will be fun. I hope they're not listening, whomever I'm going with. I won't be there for the baseball. That'll be for sure. But yeah, hey, thanks everybody for watching On Deck here on Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. Please, check out Coast to Coast on all the social media platforms, podcasts, and then all the shows here on YouTube. And just give us a like, follow, share, subscribe, please. Thank you very much to Greg and to Chris here for joining us here on Deck. We'll get out of here. Send us off, Chris. Thank you, everybody.